I've worked a lot of lousy jobs in my life, but nothing compares to the graveyard shift at the old Crestwood Mall. The mall officially shut down in 2015 after years of declining business, and while a few stores on the edges stayed open, like the 24-hour fitness center and a discount shoe outlet, the main concourse was dead. My job was to walk those hollowed-out corridors, flashlight in hand, making sure nobody broke in, tagged the walls, or set up camp inside. It sounded easy when I took it. Just a paycheck for walking around, I told myself. But after my first week, I started dreading the nights, because there's something wrong in that building after midnight. It always starts the same way. At exactly 2:17 a.m., one of the lights in the closed section of the mall turns on by itself. Always the same light, always at the same time. The first time it happened, I figured it was just faulty wiring. The Crestwood Mall is old. Most of its fixtures haven't been maintained in years. Still, I logged it in my report, called maintenance, and kept walking my rounds. But when I passed by that store again an hour later, the light was off, and nobody had gone in or out. The store was a women's clothing boutique that hadn't been touched since the shutdown. The mannequins inside were still dressed in dusty spring fashion from nearly a decade ago, their plastic eyes staring out through smudged glass. I remember standing there, staring through the window, waiting for something, anything, to move. I told myself, "Don't be stupid, it's just a bulb flickering." But then I noticed something that made my stomach twist. One of the mannequins had changed. She was facing the door now, one stiff hand raised against the glass as if she wanted out. I reported it. My supervisor laughed it off. "Mannequins fall over all the time, Jenkins. Air currents, vibrations, whatever." Except she hadn't fallen over. She had turned. I should have quit that night, but the bills were piling up, and jobs that pay for overnight shifts aren't easy to come by. So I kept showing up, and every night, 2:17 a.m. sharp, that light would flicker on. Sometimes the mannequins moved. Sometimes I'd hear faint music, tinny mall pop hits from the early 2000s, like someone had turned on the store's playlist system. And sometimes I'd hear footsteps following me. The third week was when things got bad. I was doing my usual patrol near the food court when I heard a crash echo from the boutique's direction. Every muscle in my body told me not to go, but protocol said otherwise, so I gripped my flashlight tighter and started walking. My boots crunched over dust, the sound bouncing unnaturally in the empty concourse. As I got closer, I noticed something weird. The exit signs above the boutique weren't glowing. The power to that section had cut out entirely, except for that one light. The boutique glowed like a stage set in the middle of pitch-black halls. The window was cracked, not shattered, not broken, just one long spiderweb fracture across the glass, like something inside had pushed too hard. The mannequins were all crowded near the door now, every single one of them. I remember whispering, "Nope, nope, nope, nope," under my breath, fumbling for the radio clipped to my shoulder. Base? This is Jenkins. We've got possible vandalism in Sector C. Window damage, signs of forced entry. Requesting backup." Static. I tapped the radio, adjusted the frequency. Nothing but static. That's when I heard it. A voice from inside the store. It was faint, muffled by the glass, but I swear to God I heard it say, "Let me out." I froze. My flashlight beam shook across the mannequins' plastic faces, catching on their glossy eyes and stiff grins. For a second I thought one of them had moved again, their heads angled slightly toward me, like they were listening. My legs felt locked in cement. but I forced myself to back away. "Just vandalism," I muttered. "Just a trick. Someone hiding in there. Has to be." But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't true. Because when I reached the corner and glanced back one last time, the cracked glass was clean again. Perfectly smooth. And the mannequins? They were gone. I didn't tell my supervisor about that night. I knew he wouldn't believe me. Hell, I didn't believe me. I just started carrying an extra flashlight and avoided the boutique whenever I could. But the mall didn't let me ignore it. Over the next few weeks, I caught glimpses of mannequins in other parts of the building, standing in hallways, reflected in darkened shop windows, always gone when I blinked. Sometimes they were closer than they should have been. Once, while checking the locked emergency exit at the far end of the concourse, I turned around and nearly screamed. A mannequin was right behind me, inches from my face, its head tilted like a curious child. I swung the flashlight wildly, heart in my throat. When the beam landed, the hall was empty again. The breaking point came on a Thursday night. It was 2:16 a.m. I was in the security office, sipping bad coffee, watching the cameras. I told myself I'd keep my eyes on the monitor at exactly 2:17, just to prove it wasn't all in my head. The seconds ticked by. 2:16:55, 56, 57. At 2:17 sharp, the feed for the boutique flickered, and when it cleared, the mannequins were gone. Every last one. "Shit," I whispered, leaning closer to the screen. Then the feed for the food court flickered, and there they were. A dozen mannequins standing in the middle of the court, arranged in a perfect circle. My skin crawled. I checked the live feed of my own hallway. Empty. Checked the entrance cams. Empty. Then I saw movement. One of the mannequins in the circle was no longer facing inward. It was staring directly at the camera, and its arm was lifting. Slowly, unnaturally, until its hand pressed flat against the lens. The screen went black. I don't remember deciding to leave, but suddenly I was running, boots slamming against tile, breath ragged in my ears. I didn't care about protocol, didn't care about reports. I just needed out. The mall exit was at the far end of the concourse. I sprinted, not daring to look behind me, though I swore I could hear the clatter of plastic feet chasing me. When I reached the glass doors, I slammed into them full force. They didn't budge. Locked. I fumbled for my keycard, hands shaking so badly I could barely hold it. Behind me, the air felt thick, like the space was closing in. Finally, the lock clicked. The doors flew open, and I burst into the night. I didn't stop running until I reached my car. My lungs were burning, my chest tight, but I forced the engine to start and peeled out of the lot. I never went back. I quit the next morning, didn't even give notice, just sent a one-line email. I resign effective immediately. They didn't ask questions, probably because I wasn't the first. The last thing I heard was that Crestwood Mall is still hiring for night security. But if you're thinking about applying, don't. Because at 2:17 a.m., those lights still turn on. And someone, or something, always wants out. Night shifts in hospitals are strange. During the day, the halls hum with doctors, visitors, the squeak of gurneys, the endless chatter of nurses. But at night, the building becomes a hollow, echoing shell of itself. The fluorescent lights flicker like they're trying to stay awake, and every sound, a cough, a monitor beep, the rattle of a medication cart, feels louder than it should. I had worked the overnight shift for 6 months in a small town hospital. I told myself I was used to it, but one night made me quit for good. It started at 2:13 a.m. I remember the exact time because I had just written vitals into a chart when I heard it. Someone calling my name. Soft, drawn out, almost whispered. Maria. I froze. No one called me that here. Everyone used Maria quickly, casually, but this voice stretched it, making it sound wrong, almost like the syllables were being pulled apart. I glanced down the hallway. The sound came from room 12. But room 12 was empty. I had admitted the last patient in that room myself earlier in the evening, then moved them upstairs for observation. It was unoccupied, sheets tucked, lights off. I tried to shake it off. Maybe I was tired. Maybe another nurse had called me. But then I heard it again. Maria, come in. It was unmistakably coming from room 12. My heart hammered as I stepped toward the doorway. The hall was silent except for the hum of overhead lights. I pushed the door open, and cold air spilled out, colder than the rest of the ward. The bed was empty. The sheets were wrinkled, though, as if someone had been lying there recently. I reached for the light switch. The room blinked into brightness, but the air still felt icy. "Who's there?" I said, my voice trembling. No response. Just the steady beep of the heart monitor we hadn't unplugged yet. I backed out quickly, shut the door, and forced myself to focus on paperwork at the nurse's station. But my hands wouldn't stop shaking. Half an hour later, a patient down the hall rang for assistance. I hurried into his room, trying to steady my nerves. As I adjusted his blanket, he grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. "She's looking for you," he rasped. His eyes were wide, terrified, as if he'd seen something I couldn't. "Who?" I whispered. He didn't answer. He just shook his head, then released my arm. I stepped into the hall again, and the light outside room 12 was on. My stomach dropped. I had turned it off. This time I didn't go inside. I called the orderly on duty and asked if anyone had been cleaning the room. He gave me a weird look. "No, Maria. Nobody's touched it." I wanted to believe I was imagining things, but around 4 a.m., things escalated. I was updating charts when I felt a hand brush against my shoulder. I whipped around. No one was there. My chair rolled back a few inches, as though someone had pushed it. Then I heard it again, louder this time. "Maria, come in." I stood, shaking, and turned toward room 12. The door was wide open now. I know I had closed it. Inside, the bed was no longer empty. Someone was lying under the sheets, still, the outline of a body perfectly formed. I froze in the doorway, every instinct screaming at me to run. But something compelled me to step closer. The sheet shifted, rising as though the figure was breathing. My mouth went dry. "Who are you?" I asked. The figure slowly sat up. The sheet slid down, but there was nothing underneath. No face, no body, just the sheet holding the shape of someone who wasn't there. And then it whispered from inside the emptiness. "You shouldn't be here." The heart monitor spiked, beeping rapidly, though nothing was attached to it. I stumbled backward, slamming into the doorframe and bolted down the hallway. My shoes squeaked on the tile as I ran, every light above me flickering, the beeping echoing behind me like a warning. By the time I reached the nurse's station, room 12's monitor went flatline. A shrill, endless beep filled the corridor. The orderly rushed past me to check. He came back seconds later, pale. "There's nobody in there." But the monitor, it went crazy. That was it for me. I left before my shift ended, trembling all the way home. The next morning, I went straight to the supervisor and requested a transfer. I never worked nights again. But sometimes when I wake up at 3 a.m., I swear I still hear it in the dark. That same voice stretching my name. Maria, come in. I've always said the night shift at a gas station is the kind of job you only take when life has beaten you down. Nobody chooses it. You either need money so badly that you'll work in the middle of nowhere for minimum wage, or you're running from something and don't want to be found. For me, it was both. But I swear to God, if I'd known what I'd see on those cameras, I would have chosen starvation. The station I worked at was off Highway 74, about 15 miles from the nearest town. It was the kind of place truckers pulled into when they were too tired to keep driving, and where locals came to buy cigarettes after everything else was closed. Other than that, it was dead quiet. The station had big glass windows, humming fluorescent lights, and 4 cameras, one at the pumps, one pointed at the entrance, one over the aisles inside, and one covering the back storage lot. That was my whole world from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., boring, lonely, until the first time I saw him. It was around 2:30 a.m. on a Tuesday. I remember because the store had been empty for hours, and I was nodding off behind the counter. I glanced up at the monitors, more out of habit than anything, and froze. On the pump camera, a man was standing there, tall, thin, wearing a dark coat, just standing between the pumps, hands at his sides, staring up at the station windows. Except I hadn't heard a car pull up. No headlights, no engine, nothing. And when I looked out the front windows, the lot was empty. I leaned closer to the monitor. He was still there. The grainy black and white feed showed his outline clearly. Pale face, hollow eyes, just staring. My heart thudded in my chest. I grabbed the radio but stopped halfway. What was I even going to say? There's a guy who exists on camera but not in real life? Instead, I did the stupidest thing possible. I waved at the monitor, and he waved back. I nearly knocked my chair over, scrambling to my feet. I ran to the windows again. Nothing. Just empty concrete and dark highway. When I turned back to the monitors, he was gone. For the rest of the night, I couldn't shake it. Every creak of the building made me jump. I kept checking the feeds every few minutes, but the man never reappeared. I told myself it was a glitch, a loop from old footage, something technical I didn't understand. But then it happened again. Thursday night, 2:30 a.m. sharp. There he was, same spot, same posture, staring at the windows. Only this time, he was closer to the building. I didn't wave this time. I just sat frozen, watching the monitors with my breath caught in my throat. Then, slowly, he tilted his head back and looked directly at the camera. The feed fizzled with static for half a second, and when it cleared, he was even closer, standing right outside the glass doors. I looked up. The doors were empty, but on the monitor, his face was pressed to the glass, pale skin flattened, eyes too wide, like he was trying to push his way through the screen itself. I shut the monitors off. I didn't turn them back on for the rest of the shift. Over the next week, it escalated. Every night around 2:30, if I dared to check, he'd be there. Always on camera, never in person. Sometimes he stood at the pumps, sometimes at the door, sometimes in the aisles, frozen between shelves of snacks, staring right at the lens. And every time, he was closer. One night, I swore I could hear breathing in the office even though I was alone. When I looked up, the aisle camera showed him standing inches behind the counter, directly behind me. I didn't look over my shoulder. I couldn't. I just unplugged the monitors and sat in silence until morning. I tried to tell my manager. She gave me this look like she was half concerned, half annoyed. Maybe you're just tired. These shifts mess with your head. When I insisted, she shrugged. You're not the first clerk to complain about the cameras, but every time we check the system, nothing's wrong. Not the first. That sent a chill through me deeper than anything else. The breaking point came 2 weeks later. It was a Saturday night, storm outside, rain pounding the glass so hard I could barely hear myself think. The monitors flickered on their own. I swear I hadn't touched them. And there he was. Not at the pumps, not at the doors, inside. Standing directly in front of the counter, looking at me. The feed was fuzzy, his face blurring in and out like bad reception. But his mouth was moving. Not words, just opening and closing, wider and wider, until his jaw looked like it was about to split in half. I backed away, heart hammering. My hand hit the cash register, sent coins clattering to the floor. The power went out. Everything went black. The only light left was the glow of the monitors, and on every single feed, the pumps, the aisles, the storage lot, the entrance, he was there. Dozens of him, all staring at me. I bolted. I don't even remember unlocking the door, just the cold slap of rain on my face as I sprinted to my car. My hands shook so bad I nearly dropped the keys, but somehow I made it inside, engine roaring to life. When I peeled out of the lot, I risked one glance at the station. Through the rain-streaked window, I saw them. Every aisle, every pump, every inch of the place, filled with pale, staring men, all with the same face. I never went back. I didn't collect my last paycheck, didn't even grab the jacket I left in the back office. Let someone else take the night shift. But here's the thing that keeps me up at night. Sometimes, when I can't sleep, I turn on the TV for background noise. And once, just once, I swear I saw him on the screen, standing in the corner of my living room, watching.